Okay, it's good to go.
Great, okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight to Council's Planning and Consultation Committee meeting for the month of April. Members of the public are advised that this meeting will be held virtually and recorded, and the live streaming recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. The meeting is being held online and councillors are attending virtually in accordance with Part 5 of the Governance Rule, Meeting Procedures. Council adopted its new Governance Rule meeting procedures on the 25th of July 2023, which allows for these virtual meetings to occur. My name is Natalie Duffy. I'm the Councillor for Edendale Ward and I'm your chair for tonight's meeting. I'd like to acknowledge that we have a number of speakers in our virtual room who've registered to address the meeting tonight, but they're not visible to the public. So I'd just like to invite each of the speakers to address the committee in the order in which they registered, and we will call you forward at the time appropriately in the meeting that you're able to speak to the matter that you'd like to talk to. The Director of Governance will promote each of the speakers to the panel when you're called on to make those submissions. I'd like to go through an acknowledgement of country. Nillumbik Shire respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people as histories, as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people living in Nillumbik, and we give respect to elders past, present and future. The extent of respect goes further to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma, injustices and from colonial invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people, and we acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. The Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place, and we value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australia's identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways to their ongoing contribution in many fields, including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. So what we might do now is we'll move forward in our meeting. We have an apology. We have an apology from Councillor Frances Eyre tonight. She won't be present for tonight's meeting, and I'm just looking to call for a councillor to be able to move the motion of this apology, please.
Happy to move the motion, Councillor Duffy.
Thanks, Councillor Egan. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you very much. So let's see if we're all in favour. And I'm just looking and we've got all hands up. Great, thank you. So that's carried unanimously. The next part of our meeting is looking at disclosures of conflicts of interest. Are there any councillors who'd wish to declare a conflict of interest with any of the items today? No, there's no conflict of interests. Thank you. So we'll move on to the minutes of the last planning and consultation meeting. These meetings happen every month where the community are able to come and speak to council to share their views on the topics that we're asking for feedback on. They're able to provide 3 minutes of discussion. So if we look to the minutes of the last meeting, do I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes, please?
Happy to move the recommendation, Councillor Duffy, that the committee acting under delegation from council confirms the minutes of the Planning and Consultation Committee meeting held on Tuesday the 12th of March 2024.
Thanks very much, Councillor Egan. And is there a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Perkins. Let's move that to the vote. Is that all in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. So the next part of our meeting is we're going to actually get into the items for we've been seeking community feedback on. The next report is on the draft housing strategy, and we're looking for consideration of endorsement for community engagement. Tonight we have one speaker for this report. So what I'd like to do at this stage is to invite our speaker. And we're going to be hearing from, actually, the first speaker is David Pinchera. Is David in the gallery to be able to speak to the words that he's wanting to say? Great, thanks, David. Look forward to hearing what you've got to say about the draft housing strategy and your position on housing in the Shire. Well, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay with these online meetings. So here we go, David. We can see you on the screen.
Good evening. My name is David Pinchera. I've lived in Eltham for 23 years. I'm a carpenter, local secondary teacher, and a domestic builder who co-founded a not-for-profit organisation called Reflection Outreach. Our mission for Reflection Outreach is to mitigate the pain and suffering of people in our community who are living in housing distress, find themselves homeless, and who are fleeing domestic violence. The numbers are quite alarming. Over 30,660 Victorians will be without a place to call home tonight. And the two major causes of homelessness are domestic violence and lack of affordable housing. The National Housing Accord wants us to tackle housing supply and affordability within the Shire. The municipality of Nillumbik has a low growth rate compared to Greater Melbourne, citing high costs of housing and constrained urban growth boundary. What I would like to propose this evening is the real opportunity to tackle both and meet the requirements outlined in the agenda. I refer to a documentation called Project 30,000, Producing Social and Affordable Housing on Government Land, published in 2018 by Melbourne School of Design Faculty of Architecture. It identifies vacant or housing compatible sites. A HEART score, which is a housing access rating tool, by residents can access all important amenities and services within a 20-minute travel distance, preferably by foot, bicycle, or public transport. Preliminary researchers identified 447 vacant land or lazy land from just under 12,000 government-owned properties in Victoria. Site limitations such as flood zone and hazardous waste was taken into account in this report. This means that overall 30,000 homes across 255 sites could be built for housing. Eltham has 5 locations listed with a HEART score ranging from 16 to 19, with the capacity to build 402 homes. 739 Main Street, Eltham, has caught our attention for housing development. It has a HEART score of 19, 20 being the highest score. Housing is fundamental and something that impacts all people. The housing strategy to include housing vulnerable groups and to provide sustainable housing can provide direct benefits in regard to sustainability across social, environmental, and economic outcomes. This is why Reflection Outreach is persisting with our vision. We are collaborating with ADRA, which is a relief agency. We are currently identifying a community housing organisation partner to provide tenant referrals and tenancy management. Builders, carpenters, and other trades, and town planner and a TAFE auspicing arrangement are in place to help facilitate our endeavours to build high-performance housing cabins, specifically for women who, in their 50s and 60s, are themselves victims of domestic violence. This current estimated cost for the build is $170,000. Preliminary architectural walking drawings have been acquired. We envisage having selected vet, Cert 2 building and construction pre-apprentices to participate alongside skilled tradespeople, paraprofessionals and professionals to build these high-performance cabins. We're looking to partner with the Department of Education and secondary colleges to make learning practical and meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was just perfect timing, a little bit over. Didn't want to cut you off there. What I'd like to do is just ask if there are any councillors that might have questions for David. Oh, that's great. There's lots of interest here, David. I'll go to Councillor Perkins first.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I didn't quite catch the address. Was it? I thought I heard 793 Main Road, Eltham. Was that the one?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that the old Shire office site, or is that something else? What's? I can Google it to find out where it is, but where is that?
It's look, I do apologise because I was mindful of the time limitation. but it's a just off main road. It's sort of north of the border, borders the fire brigade, and there's a venue there that has been set aside for pottery classes, etc., etc. And to the left of that, you have a like an early childhood centre, and then to the west you have the BMX track.
I can perhaps.
Okay, it's the old Shire Office side, is it?
No.
No, it's sounding like it's behind the Eltham
The
Community and Reception Centre. Is that correct, David?
Living and learning.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Councillor Egan, I noticed that you had a question for David.
Yes, it sounds a fantastic scheme, David. So what are the current blocks at the moment? What are your biggest obstacles apart from budget and money, obviously? Is it planning or other issues?
Look, it is, I think both. The first part is because it's lazy land, means that there are some developments already in place in existence. And I think it'll be a disappointment to knock down those venues that have served the community so well. But there is land opportunity in that little pocket where we're able to put up, 4 to 5 of these high performance cabins. And there would be some restriction as to using park land that's set aside already to then change that over to housing sort of land. So I think there will be some constraints from that aspect, but more than happy to share that information in greater details. I'm just mindful of the time, that's all.
Thank you, David. I also saw Councillor Stockman raise his hand before. Councillor Stockman, would you have any questions for David?
Yes, Councillor Duffy. Thanks for your presentation, David. You mentioned 30,660 people recorded as homeless, and that was in the last census, I believe. But that's about 5 times the national average. Do you believe this means that we've got a housing crisis here? And the second question I've got is, can we sweep it under the carpet? Like, how serious is this?
Look, I'll answer the second one first. I don't think we can sweep it under the carpet. I mean, I think Australia still hasn't adopted into law housing as a human rights. I think that's we need a more nuanced conversation, and I think that needs to begin at secondary level, maybe even earlier. I'm very passionate as a secondary teacher to be able to bring these aspects to light. I think from an educational standpoint, STEM is something that we need to consistently find ourselves driving forward and building a high performance housing to meet those needs, I think, is very important. And sorry, I just forgot your first part of the question about the numbers of homeless people.
Yeah, no, we're just asking if we have a housing crisis at the moment, and we should obviously have a lot of talk and discussion about that.
Yeah, look, absolutely, we definitely do, and I think unfortunately our not-for-profit wouldn't exist with all these issues that we find ourselves in. We're needing 90,000 tradespeople. That's now, let alone getting these apprentices through. My field is in carpentry. So the government is trying to find opportunities to work within the sector, but the numbers are just dire. And look, I think Nillumbik is a very progressive council, and they take things very seriously. I think I moved here when I was 25 years old, and it's a place that my 5 children are blessed to have been raised in and call this home. And I think with your leadership and your wisdom, I think, and these conversations, I think we can actually do something. But at the core of what Reflection Outreach is trying to do is tackle this through an educational standpoint, which meets the 3 pillars of sustainability head on.
we have any other questions for David? No, that's great, David. Before I let you go, I'd just like to say thank you for educating us tonight. It's great to hear about Reflection Outreach and the project that you've got and the way that you're looking to include apprentices and working with the state government. And here in Nillumbik, it's fabulous to have your input today, and look forward to the next conversations that can happen. So please continue to be involved with our housing strategy and what we're putting forward. So, I'd like to say thank you for participating, and, please stay in contact with us.
Will do. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks, David. Okay, just to move on, we have two other submitters today. These are written submissions that have been submitted for me to read out as the chair. The first submission is from Gilla Schnapp. Gilla Schnapp has submitted the following written words. Attention to the CEO and Renee, please ensure and confirm governance receives this presentation, which it has, to be read out by Chair of the PCC. This is Gilla Schnapp's individual presentation. Gilla is saying, I object to Council's endorsement of this housing draft for community consultation for the following reasons. A, I object to the Council officers' in-house preparation of this draft and the entire process used to inform it, hence request it be deferred until further open and transparent community consultation occurs to enable a modified draft for endorsement. B, I object to reliance on Council's selected community reference group informing it when well-qualified others were rejected and disregarded. C, objectively, should have been assured with independent outsourcing of the preparation of the draft, as occurred with the interrelated, flawed, inequitable new Diamond Creek Major Activity Centre structure plan. And then there's a reference to previous submissions to that. Point D, the sequence of the latter process should have occurred after the adoption of the 2020 housing strategy instead of suddenly abandoning it in its final stages. As a consequence, all of those in original Diamond Creek suburb, Shute Street Commercial Centre, and admitted from the previous 2001 housing strategy, including any modifications to it, they will and may suffer major losses and damages with this now 2024 draft. Point E, in fact, if the draft proceeds for release as now exhibited, our family's adjoining properties at 60 acres in total will be irrelevant to this process with dire consequences for us. Our land's precious urban reticulated infrastructure, mandatorily paid for and established with reliance on its full utilisation for urban processes, will be eroded and diverted knowingly for the benefit of others instead to provide for this housing strategy at our destruction. If, as a matter of urgency, we request that the CEO and Nillumbik Shire Council gives immediate notification to the Premier and all state government departments and services, providers and the state government database have incorrect information that our acreage properties have no infrastructure. The next point G, this serious mistake must be corrected immediately by those responsible with an apology and statement saying property with infrastructure. This serious mistake was and still is public on real estate websites. We've been informed by one of these sites that it was not their fault because they purchased the information from the government database. This serious incorrect information is damaging to us. We don't know who we are responsible for this incorrect information on the database. Nillumbik Council acknowledged our land's distinctive infrastructure in the year 2000 with process of the adoption of the new Nillumbik format planning scheme. Point G, Council also have the hard evidence that this fact is true. Accordingly, we request and respect their proactive assistance in correction of this damaging mistake. Point H, Council also were active at another time more recently with the correction on the internet of an incorrect Diamond Creek suburban.
Point of order.
Yes?
We're out of time.
Oh, yes, great. Thank you. I couldn't see the clock as I was reading this. There's quite a bit more, and I'll stop reading that now as we are out of time with the 3 minutes that was allocated per speaker. Thank you, Councillor Perkins, for bringing my attention to the clock. I can't see it when I'm reading these submissions. I'll go on to the next written submission, which is from a company called Adjunct Billy. And the written submission is as follows. read out to the committee on the 16th of April by the chair. Please table this presentation and all its attachments. The later part 2 as well, which is confidential to council. Point 1, Agent Billy Proprietary Limited reserves all its rights. Point 2, it strenuously objects to release and passing adoption of the above draft for consultation in current form. This unfairly and unreasonably omits and disenfranchises and the majority of the Shire, which is classified as rural. Point 3, now is an opportunity to enable affordable, creative housing options for more people to directly share living in and enjoying the Greenwich proximity to these areas. Agent Billy Proprietary Limited requests further notification and consultation with the whole community is first undertaken, inclusive of all zones, adding a unique and new diversity of stock. Point 4, this will inform the draft in a fair and reasonable manner. It will enable amendments to it prior to its release, not after when it's too late. And its scope, terms of reference, purview, is already unfairly and unreasonably determined, as appears now to be the case, thus making irrelevant again and effectively omitting from this process. Point 5, accordingly, we also request and expect Council to revisit and properly consider all of the above company submissions in the previously abandoned housing strategy, already in its final stages, as well as other submissions, presentations to all processes to date. Lastly, point 6 and 7, the new housing strategy must be based on correct and equitable planning foundation. Last point 7, accordingly, all outstanding errors and anomalies in the current housing strategy, approximately from 2001, must be corrected prior to any consideration of a new one. This includes areas of this submission and adjoining family-owned related land that have also been inequitably omitted. They will all suffer major losses and damages unless equitably included now, irrespective of actual final site-specific land use. Please note state government and its instrumentalities so all can work together for equitable remedies. And thank you from Gillis Knapp, a director on behalf of Agent Billy, and that is 40 acres of land in Diamond Creek. Thank you. We did get within the time frame for that. We won't go into any questions because the submissions are written and the submitter is not here in person to speak to that or to have questions asked of them. At this point, we might move on to the motion. And I'm wondering, do we have a motion? Do we have a mover for the recommendation? And the motion is just about to come up onto the screen. So thank you, Councillor Perkins.
I'll move the officer recommendation. It is that the committee acting under delegation of Council Number 1 notes the draft Nillumbik housing strategy, which is provided as attachment 1. 2 notes what we've heard about housing summary paper as attachment 2. 3 endorses the draft Nillumbik housing strategy and for public engagement to occur from late April to late May for 4 weeks. 4 endorses the what we heard about housing summary paper and requests officers to make the paper available on the Participate Nillumbik page in support of community engagement on the draft Nillumbik housing strategy. And 5 notes that a report is scheduled to be presented to Council's Planning and Consultation Committee in July, where submitters to the draft Nillumbik housing strategy will be invited to speak to their submissions.
That's great. Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Do we have a seconder for the motion? I'll ask again, councillors, is there somebody that would like to second this? I didn't see any hands go up. Thank you very much, Councillor Payne.
Okay, look,
Councillor Perkins, yes, would love to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah, look, just first of all, thank David and also Gilla for her 2 submissions, one from herself and one from Agent Billy. David in particular, I think you've got in early, which is great. Look forward to further submissions and to Gilla and Angela Billy throughout the consultation period, which is a month from late April to late May. So this is the very start of the consultation process, looking at the draft housing strategy as presented. Council's been working through it. I understand that Council's broadly happy with it, but we're very comfortable in sending it to community consultation to hear more about what people think about it. And we expect that we'll get a lot more submissions when we're back here in late May. I think it is a good document at this stage. It's a good start. There'll be changes to it. I'm more comfortable with this one. Gilla spoke about one that was abandoned in 2020. That was one that was put together by consultants, and it felt very much at the time that Council had very little impact upon how the housing strategy was developed. The feedback we were getting from officers was, well, basically, the consultants doing this work, and it felt like there was limited opportunity for Council to influence the consultant. I'm certainly a lot more comfortable this time around because there is, we know, a greater ability for Council to have discussions with officers and perhaps influence the direction of the strategy. So I think it's a much better start, and we're off and running now out to community consultation for a month, and look forward to hearing from people about what they think about the housing strategy. In terms of the suggestion that David had around that property, and I looked it up, the site is the Eltham Community Reception Centre. I think that would probably be terribly difficult, but we're certainly interested in hearing more from David, specifically around the strategy. If you've got some additions or amendments you'd like to make to the strategy, that would be very useful. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Council.
Thanks, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Payne, is there anything that you'd like to add? Do we have any comments from any of the other councillors? Yes, Councillor Stockman.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank the submitters, and I'd like to see some more submitters on something so important like this document. And I just wonder if we do get the word out there. I know Councillor Perkins, one of his constituents there, Gilla from Diamond Creek, did submit, and that's great. And I wish we could have some from my ward there in Blue Lake. I did want to touch on a couple of reasons why we don't have so many submitters, and I actually do catch up 3 times a week with constituents. I make that a regular thing I do every week. Give them 3 opportunities during the week. But I don't think I get the word out to my constituents as much for very important things like this. So hopefully if this goes out to and it gets approved, it does go out, that we have plenty of people that do contribute to it. I have noticed, and I know the CEO and I talk about sometimes how many cars go by Yan Yan Road every day, and it's somewhere in the vicinity of 26 to 28,000, maybe a couple more. But there is a real estate board that goes up in the corner there of Ironbark Road and Yan Yan Road, and it's very good at promoting. And I know our council officers do promote certain events, not necessarily always in Blue Lake, or I haven't seen one in Blue Lake yet, but they do promote events there. Certainly that would be a good board to promote something like this, because I think it's very, very important, and I'd love my constituents at Blue Lake to be a little bit more engaged. I've read through the documents. It's got 31.3% of dwellings going to the major activity centres of Diamond Creek and Eltham, which I find that fairly short for dwellings. It's 1,011 dwellings out of the 3,233 proposed. So I think possibly that could be a little higher from my point of view. Also in there too, it does say, and this is a state government policy of 800 metres. There's a walking distance from the station, well, I think with things like electric vehicles, scooters and bikes and so forth, that perhaps that could go a bit further. And in Diamond Creek itself, 800 metres circle around Diamond Creek. If you're looking at housing and that, it's probably 75% of it roughly is made up of parks and retail space, council buildings, pretty much anything but housing. So it doesn't really, just like to see where the actual housing is going. Let's have that to be addressed. So
Thanks, Councillor Stockman. Is there anybody else that would like to say a few words? Okay, well, just before we move on, I might say something very briefly, just that, you know, this report provides the draft for Nillumbik housing strategy, and, you know, it is looking at running for 4 weeks in April to May for people to be able to give us your thoughts, as Councillor Perkins did say. The development of the new housing strategy, along with the neighbourhood character strategy, are working hand to hand, and they've been priorities for us as a council. And so I'd just like to say thank you to the officers that have been involved in this work, Lee Northwood and Renee O'Hearn and their teams, and just encourage the community to get involved with this strategy, because we're looking 15 years in the future. So this is a strategy that has it lasts a long time, and we want to get it right, and we want to make sure that it's in keeping with what we want Nillumbik to be, but also looking at being able to help provide housing solutions for the people of all ages in our shire, those young families, new families that are coming in, those that are looking to downsize, and looking at how we can work in with our transport and infrastructure and roads. So, you know, thank you for everybody for the submissions that we've received so far through the work that's been done. And, you know, I would encourage, as other councils would, for the community to get behind this. Would love to hear lots of views when this feedback closes, and for the next time we get to hear from the community. So with that, I'd like to say, Councillor Perkins, I don't think that there's a need for you to speak again, because no one was speaking against you today. So we might move straight into the next phase, which is asking for a vote on this. So, you know, I'll put the motion forward about all in favour of accepting the motion put forward by Councillor Perkins. Yeah, and so that's unanimous. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so next we will move on to the next topic. The next topic for tonight is the report on the draft budget for 2024 to 2025. And we've got 6 submitters for this report, I believe. And again, we'll invite the people who are our virtual audience submitters to come first, and then we'll read out the submissions that are in writing after that. So what we might do now is we'll just look to invite the submitters. So I'll just call on the first one. And let me find out the first name there. Sorry, I'm a little bit lost. Here we go. So Neil McCoy. Am I doing this in the right order? Yes, I am. We're asking for the submitters first, and then we'll go to councillors to do the, you know, moving and seconding of the motion.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Neil. Thank you for putting yourself onto voice. I'm wondering, would you like to show your camera as well? You don't have to do that, but if you'd like to put your camera on view, we'd love to see you, but you don't have to. You're welcome to speak.
Yeah, it was video settings. It's telling me that I'm connected, but my camera isn't turning on. I can see that much.
That's okay. Well, we can hear you loud and clear. So, yeah, how about you proceed? We'd love to hear what you've got to say, Neil. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay. Well, thanks for the opportunity, and we, the Health and Men Shed, certainly appreciate the support that the council provides us. We missed the opportunity, unfortunately, of putting in a submission to the budget, but we're looking at updating our kitchen in the Health and Men Shed facilities on Wattle Tree Road. So just a bit of background, EMS provides support and social cohesion for 135 members, and we have over 400 visits per month from members and visitors and guests. We provide 33 different activities to support the mental health of older men, as well as providing inclusiveness for all men. A particular social event is a monthly lunch catered for by the shed members and also community volunteers who occasionally come in and help us provide that lunch. We have plans for providing cooking lessons to men who have either lost their partner and don't know how to boil a kettle, for example. And our existing kitchen is not quite fit for purpose. So we've been looking at updating it. We've got a cost estimate of having a commercial tradespeople install it of about $40,000 to have that work done. If the men's shed members provided labour and built the cabinetry in-house, we could reduce that total cost to about $25,000. So the men's shed could raise those funds, and we certainly wish to. It's something we would push on with regardless. So in that respect, we don't necessarily require council funding, but what we really do require is council to provide approval for us to commence the work and perhaps provide approved tradesmen from the council to do the electricity, gas, plumbing, etc. And help us facilitate that new kitchen design. So that's about it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Neil, for chatting with us tonight and sharing a bit about the work that the men's shed do and what you're looking to achieve with a kitchen renewal there. I'll just put it to other councils to see if anybody has any further questions for you, Neil. No, it looks like you've been very comprehensive with what you were putting forward. So I'd just like to say thank you for informing us tonight and for letting us know that within the budget you are hoping to see some work happen on your kitchen, and that you might be in a position to be able to fund that yourself as well. I suppose that might depend upon whether it's a $40,000 build or a $25,000 build. So we'll take your comments on board and we'll leave that with council officers to discuss further as appropriate with the men's shed. But thank you for speaking with us tonight so that we can hear what you have to say.
Okay, thanks very much for the opportunity. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Neil.
Bye.
The next speaker that we've got tonight, I'd like to welcome forward to speak on the budget is Anne Bailey. Anne is with the Eltham Junior Football Club. So thank you, Anne. We'll look forward to you being able to join the screen and the audio so that we can hear from you.
Good morning,
Anne.
all. Sorry, good evening. Good evening. Hello all, my name is Anne Bailey. I am a treasurer at the Eltham Junior Football Club. I'm also a resident at Nillumbik and have been for about 13 years now. I wanted to just let you know a little bit about the Eltham Junior Football Club and then just what our ask is in relation to the upcoming budget. So at the Eltham Junior Football Club, we have 550 registered players. That's 25 teams in total. 6 of those teams are female teams, and we're proud to say that there's 212 girls teams this year for the first time ever. One of those teams is actually an all abilities team as well. They play 6 games a year, and the club invests or sponsors them just to get them on the ground, to give them the opportunity to play as well. And we have 18 boys teams. The aim of the Eltham Junior Football Club is actually to provide an opportunity for the youth in the area to play Australian football, and it's also to be involved in an organised sport. The reason for that, organised sports assist children with their health, with their well-being. It also gets them out in the community, it socialises them, and then not just the benefits of the children, it's also benefits to their parents. Their parents come out, socialise, meet other parents, and it assists with their well-being as well. We like to support, so the players, the parents, the supporters, the umpires, spectators as well. So it is an all-inclusive activity that is run within Eltham and the surrounding areas. What are the objectives of the club? I've just noted down a few things here. So we want to ensure that there's a sense of social and community values are shared. That there's an environment for the juniors to be mature, their mental development, and also to provide them and show them an environment where they can respect officials. And we also want to provide an opportunity for everybody to play. And included in that is opportunities to have, I suppose, equal facilities in grounds and facilities of the ground, so that all teams have an equal opportunity there. The request that we're saying in relation to the budget is for Eltham High School. Eltham High School is one of the grounds that is used for our all abilities and our female players. Occasionally it is also for the junior boys players. At the moment, there are no coaches boxes and there's no scoreboard there. So we would like to see in the budget potentially provision for those. That would also benefit the students at Eltham High School as well. And then the second request is just in relation to Susan Street. So we have a ground at Susan Street, and the drainage there has not been improved in over a decade. And so last year, as an example, for 2 months, the ground was unusable. And not just by the Eltham Junior Football Club, but also by other members of the community for their dog walks, etc. So we were looking at, could there be some provision in the budget for drainage at Susan Street? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anne. That was right on time. We heard the message loud and clear there. I would just like to put it to other councillors to see if they have any questions for you. Councillor Perkins.
And this could be a shot in the dark, but did you present to council on the Fabros Fields concept? Like someone from Eltham Junior Football Club?
Someone from Eltham Junior Football Club did, but that was not me. No.
Oh, no worries. Thank you.
That's okay.
Yes, I think I recall that was the president, Jodie Mitchell, that spoke about Fabros Field, and that's where I suppose you, in terms of women in football at Eltham Junior Football Club, I'm aware that you've got a female president, yourself as a female treasurer, and a female secretary. So
that is correct. Yes.
I can see why things are thriving in terms of having 6 girls teams as well. I'll just ask if there are any other questions. It looks like Councillor Perkins has got his hand up again.
Sorry, and I was just going to ask him, in terms of the school's attitude, you can imagine it's very difficult for council to provide infrastructure on state government land. I'm not saying it can't be done.
Yes.
There certainly are partnerships that happened in the past. I think Community Bank Stadium in Diamond Creek is a fantastic example where 3 levels of government got together and built that community stadium. So, it certainly can happen. But have you had any discussions with the school and what's their attitude to, this sort of partnership arrangement if it was to come to fruition? Would they be willing to help fund it? What are they saying?
So I need to take that question on notice if that's okay, because I personally haven't. I'm not aware that anyone else has. However, I will get feedback to the president and the secretary. If those discussions haven't been had, then obviously, that's our first step. We have to ensure that that's exactly what the school would want as well. I know we have a very good relationship with the school. We also have a very good relationship, obviously, with the council who allocate the ground for the players to use. But I will take that on notice if that's okay and get back to you.
Yep, no worries. Thank you, Anne.
Do we have any other questions?
No.
Was that another question, Councillor Perkins? No, okay. I have a question, Anne, and that's hearing what you're saying about the coaches boxes at Eltham High, and following on from what Councillor Perkins was saying about this being state government land.
Yes.
One of the things that we have at council is a fair access policy for sport, and so I can help provide that to you so that you have that. But I am hearing what you're saying about having the need to be able to provide those facilities for equality in competition. But with the 2 priorities that you've mentioned, the coaches box at Eltham High and the drainage at Susan Street, with limited money in the budget, which would be the greater priority for the Eltham Junior Football Club when council's looking at how we make our decisions with where ratepayers money goes in the next 12 months?
So I actually think we would prefer the coaches' boxes and the scoreboard at Eltham High School, only because I think that is probably more realistic with the limited funds. The cost of those is probably 1/6 of what would cost to actually do the drainage at Susan Street. So our preference would definitely be the Eltham High School, just to get the coaches' boxes and the scoreboard, because like I said, just so then when the children are playing, they've got the same facilities available as other teams on the other 2 grounds that are allocated to Eltham Junior Football Club.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us, and thank you very much for the volunteer work that you do and all of the others that are working towards having kids in sport. So at Eltham Junior Football Club, congratulations, Anne. So thank you for participating today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thank you all.
So we might move on now to the next submissions. We don't have any more people who are going to be speaking in person. We have some written submissions, so I'll proceed to read those out. So the first submission now relating to the budget is from Dale Ancestis. If I'm mispronouncing your surname, Dale, my apologies. It's regarding Crowther Avenue mitigation. I'll read out Dale's statement as is. We are requesting funds be allocated to seal Crowther Avenue and Wattle Glen in the 2024-2025 budget. Crowther Avenue is unsafe and dangerous. Crowther Avenue, which connects to Lower Road, being gravel on a very steep hill over a 20% gradient with gutter trenches and no footpaths, is high risk and hazardous to motorists, residents and pedestrians. The steepness of Crowther Avenue is one of the biggest issues. Sealing Crowther Avenue will provide a safe environment for the users of the road. It will eliminate water damage to properties on the lower side of Crowther Avenue, Ashworth Avenue and Lower Road, and it will eliminate health and property damage caused by the hazardous levels of dust. In our submission, we highlighted the numerous incidences that have and are occurring on Crowther Avenue, vehicles in gutters, people losing their footing, falling and incurring injuries, including a very serious broken leg, bikes, motorcycles sliding and toppling over, water running through people's property, and clouds of dust impacting on properties and people's health. It's only a matter of time before council is subject to litigation and damages for hurt and suffering because of personal or property damage, which results from a serious incident, dust hazards or water damage. We recognise there are limited funds and the residents are not looking for a gold-plated solution. We're looking for an economical and practical solution. We believe council has a responsibility to provide a safe environment where people do not fall and injure themselves, where vehicles do not career off the road, where water flows are controlled and people's health and their properties are not subjected to excessive dust levels. You may think this is just residents complaining and they should pay for the sealing themselves, but Crowther is not safe and the council has a duty of care to residents and users of Crowther Avenue. Last year, we requested funds for sealing, but Crowther Avenue was only considered a medium risk, thus no funding was allocated. With all the serious incidences that have and are occurring on Crowther Avenue, other roads must be extremely bad. We do question the allocation of funds to reseal roads that to a lay person look fine and present no risk, yet funds are not allocated to the sealed dangerous roads. Yet funds are not allocated to sealed dangerous unsealed roads. Please listen to our concerns, experience them and act. And then Dale goes to say, I draw your attention to the 4 photos which highlight the issues the residents and users are facing. And those photos are available for councillors to view. So on behalf of the residents, thank you from Dale Ancestis. I'll move on to the next submission. The next submission is from Mary Salchi. Before I do that, I will just reiterate that with submissions in person, we're able to ask questions of residents and the submitters, but for these written submissions, councillors are not in a position to ask any questions because the person is not here to do so. So just for the benefit of those people who are watching the live stream to understand why that is. So moving on to the next submission about the budget, it's from Mary Salci Morabito, and Mary submitted the following written submission. Thank you for hearing from our small community of Diamond Creek off Aqueduct Road. The reason for the submission today is to discuss the 2024 budget and the consideration of developing a parkland within our area. I represent a small group of neighbours and friends within this pocket of Diamond Creek, as we're constantly returning to the same conversation about the parkland on the corner of David Hockley Drive and Monomeath Avenue. The land is something we're not even certain how to describe. Is it a reserve? Is it a dog park? Is it a pretty piece of grass with trees around it? The reason that there isn't an apt description for this block of land is that it presents us with basically zero use and function. I personally only know of one family who uses the parkland for their very well-trained dog who loves to catch a ball there. However, this neighbour's always suited up in work boots because anybody else would be probably step in a big pile of wet grass and mud. The picture I'm trying to draw your attention to is in fact that this land is simply a large slanted block of grass, which at the moment offers no benefit to our families, but holds the possibility of so much more. A few years ago, when we rallied to save this block of land from commercial sale, we were hoping that Nillumbik would finally deliver on the promise that the original purchasers of the land were given. It was somewhat of a sales pitch. That pitch included the promise that the vacant land would be developed into a playground at a later date. When I purchased my property in 2009, the vendors described this same pitch to me. I was delighted to hear this since I had a 2-year-old and another baby on the way. While the playground in Arthur Street and Place was useful over the years, it's a very small, underwhelming space that only offers an outlet for toddlers and very young children. Reading up your budget plans for 2024, this playground is to undergo another makeover, which begs the question, what happened to the original plans of a playground at the corner of David Hockney and Monomeath? I'm now a mother to teenage children who experience firsthand the barriers to education and outdoor play spaces for 2 years during lockdowns. During those lockdowns, we often walked past that block of land and lamented about how wonderful it would be to have a community gathering space there. We talked about how great it would be to have a half basketball court, or maybe a community vegetable garden, or maybe soccer goals, or maybe just a simple fence around the block so our adorable dogs could safely and freely run around the space without threat of running off. As residents of Nillumbik, we're fed up with paying an exorbitant amount of fees and rarely getting to experience any direct benefit from these rates and charges. At this land, there are no fences, no seating. The grounds are often wet and muddy, but has offered us so far in a pretty few trees to look at. Teenagers in this zone simply don't have a gathering space in their local community to meet and be social. It's actually vital for teenagers to have an outdoor space in their local community. Their social and mental well-being requires this. Well, Nillumbik have done some amazing work developing the youth hub in Diamond Creek and investing in the mental health of our youth. Unfortunately, this space isn't within walking distance for the teenagers in our zone. As parents, we'd love nothing more than to see our children have an informal gathering space. I'll just finish this sentence. An informal gathering space to meet with other families and neighbours and maybe engage with some sport or other activity there. I speak with urgency from the families in our small community. And that's from Mary Salci Marabito. I'll move on to the next submission that's written, and this is from John F. Smith. Eltham Club and its 3 co-tenants, sporting clubs, and their memberships at Eltham Central Park acknowledge and are very grateful to the significant contribution made by yourself and council to create what is the premier sporting ground facilities within the region. It is important that we recognise those special people within council who have worked in partnership over the last few years to achieve the above results. Davina Flynn, who was the Sport and Recreation Officer and has now become Recreation and Open Space Project Manager. Brendan Hibbert, who is now the Sport and Recreation Liaison Officer. Rob Hall. Rob is the reason why Central is regarded by players and alike as one of the best grounds in the Northern Football Netball League. The ground has improved considerably since he arrived on the scene, and for this we are very appreciative. The major infrastructure spending is largely complete, and effort should be diverted to potential and modest facility enhancements, and in particular to important maintenance work which sustains the quality of the facilities, including restoration of the external timber work and the fascia of the buildings, which are showing signs of weathering, other external restoration work that was identified on both the exterior of the main social rooms and the change rooms, internal painting, patching of both the main social rooms and the change rooms, installation and mains gas connection or electricity of 2 barbecues, in the breezeway between the 2 buildings. This would be one of our main goals this year, is the installation and connection of 2 permanent park-type barbecues in the breezeway between the 2 buildings. This would be a very welcome addition to all 3 clubs and could also be used by U3A. As you would be aware, barbecues are a very important part of a sporting club, especially when you're feeding up to 100 hungry kids, and at present our setup isn't up to scratch. With regards to the above, the Eltham Club appreciates any financial support that might be made available. As always, we are happy to work with Council however we can. Happy to discuss, and thank you for the ongoing support. Yours faithfully, John F. Smith. So I'll say thank you to John for his submission from Eltham Football Club, and we'll move on to the next speaker. Okay, the next submission is from Rebecca Neem, and the submission is as follows. Dear Mr. Cowie, the Mayor and Councillors, this is a statement that I'd like to have read out tonight, which is an abridged version of what was submitted with my request to speak at the meeting in a letter I originally sent to Council dated the 22nd of March 2024. Firstly, I would like to thank you for the work that you do for our community, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. I'm here to address the serious health and safety concerns regarding the T intersection on the corner of Susan Street and Withers Way in Eltham. As a parent of Eltham High School, Nillumbik resident and ratepayer of 30 years, and the president of the Eltham High School Council, I'm requesting that a school crossing be installed at the T intersection of Susan Street and Withers Way, the location, with supervisors before and after school to support the safety of hundreds of children on their way to and from school each day. The issue was initially raised with the Shire in 2020 by our principal, Vincent Zakari, and while there have been numerous meetings and site visits from Council and support from three key stakeholders, those being Eltham High, the Eltham Wildcats Basketball Club and the Elsham Leisure Centre, it was agreed that a new crossing would be developed at the location many years ago. However, no action has been taken. Currently, the school provides teachers to supervise students crossing the road at the location, but even they feel unsafe at times, reporting near misses without a crossing being there. In March 2023, a young student was hit by a car while trying to cross the road in the location. In 1985, a Year 9 student was hit and killed by a car when walking home from school along Withers Way, formerly Dalton Street. The car that hit her was driven by a parent of Eltham High School. Occurrences such as these are tragic and life-changing for the entire community. Our aim is clear: to prevent something like this from ever happening again. Some of the issues currently faced are cars travelling down Withers Way towards the corner of Susan Street and must often brake heavily to avoid students. There are many cars that travel up Withers Way towards Bolton Street with indicators on to turn right into Susan Street, generally at a time when most students are crossing the street. Furthermore, any car that wants to continue straight up Withers Way and is behind a turning car often must brake to avoid students crossing that way. And cars that are travelling along Susan Street wanting to turn right into Withers Way often again do so directly in the path of crossing students. We hope that there is room in the budget for this crossing to be installed in the location in the next financial year. Yours faithfully, Rebecca Neem, President of the Eltham High School Council. Bit of a tongue twister to try and get that read out in time, but thank you, Rebecca, for your submission. Again, we can't ask any questions of councillors with that, and I'll leave this submission to be considered by councillors and for officers to reach out to Eltham High as appropriate. That brings us to the end of all of the submissions that we have on the budget. So I'd like to move to the next step of the meeting, where we would look to have a mover for the recommendation of the budget item.
Happy to move the motion as per the papers.
Thank you very much, Councillor Payne. The budget recommendation is up on the screen for those who wish to read that out, and for those who have seen the agenda and are familiar with that. Do we have a seconder for this item, councillors? Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Payne, is there anything that you'd like to say?
Not really, just to thank the officers Vince Lombardi and Malika Secunda for all their hard work.
Great, thank you. Councillor Perkins, is there anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, look, this meeting is really about the submissions themselves, and we'll consider the budget more formally after any changes at the next council meeting. We've certainly listened to what you say, Neil, from Eltham Men's Shed. We hope that officers continue to work with you. That seems like a fairly small ask, but the devil is in the detail. Certainly if you guys could fund it, we're sure that officers will work with you and try to ensure that it's built to the appropriate standard. Doesn't always work when people do their own work or propose to do their own work, even though we know the men's shed are more handy than most. It's been an experience in the past that quite often footy clubs or whatever else that when they make their own additions or alterations to council buildings, quite often it ends up substandard and ends up costing council a lot of money, as well as increased risk to council. No doubt, I'm sure officers will work with you, and the fact that you are willing to fundraise says a lot, and that will help you a long way. Eltham Junior Football Club, we spoke about that. I think the bigger issue there is working with the school and making sure they're comfortable with the plans, and certainly do they want those facilities on school grounds? Not sure. I think the conversation has to start there. Dale, I think I could be wrong, was Dale speaking to Crowther Avenue?
That's right, yes.
Yeah, so this is an ongoing campaign, I think, by the residents of Crowther Avenue, but the reality is it's an unsealed road. It's a very similar condition to most unsealed roads across Nillumbik, and council just doesn't have the ability to seal every unsealed road. We've certainly got many more unsealed roads in terms of kilometres than we do sealed roads. Generally in higher density suburban areas, the roads are initially sealed by the developer. There might even be a playground put in by the developer. Residents move in, they pay a premium for that urban type infrastructure. When people move into a rural part of the Shire, there is less amenity in terms of sealed roads and playgrounds and the like, footpaths. But there is the ability to get your road sealed, basically at the residents' expense if they're happy to contribute to a special charge scheme. Once the road is sealed that initial time, then council maintains that road forever. So if the standard is that the road has to be resealed every 5 years or on inspection, whenever it's due, it is done, and it's done at council cost. So roads have to be maintained. I've run out of time already, but thank you. I could have gone on for another 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Perkins. And it was really great to hear how well you listened to the speakers. It's nice to know that they're being heard. We'll move on to Councillor Stockman. I see you've got your hand up, Councillor Stockman. What would you like to say about the budget and what you've heard tonight?
Thanks, Chair. I won't be supporting this to go to the next level. I know we need to go out to a consultation, but I've got some fairly strong views on not supporting this budget. I think we need to break it down. I think obviously our council laws give direction to the officers. I think we've got some sensational officers, but they can only work with what they've got. And direction, I think, fails us a lot. I think that we're very one-dimensional. We just look at rates. In fact, there's probably a councillor or two that would like to have even higher rates. I'm the only one who addressed that I did bring it up at the council budget, that we're the second highest rated council in all of Victoria. And I don't think that really got much traction, but it certainly hurts in my ward. There's people there that talk to me all the time that say they pay a lot of rates and they don't get the amenities, they don't get back what they what they have. And even a lady there who was on one of the submitters, Mary Celsi Mirabito, was talking about not even having a playground close to where she is, and it's a very populated area. So we need to address why this happens. I mean, it's pretty obvious. We are a peri-urban council, and there's a lot of pressure on us. I myself is from the rural side of things. I grew up in the country, and sometimes you can't bring the mountain to Muhammad. You've got to take Muhammad to the mountain. And that means we can't keep providing services elsewhere. We've got to look at the population. We've got to look at where the youth is. We've got to look where we're failing as well. So I just find it very hard to support this. I think I've talked before, and it's not just talking about Blue Lake ward, but there's a huge amount of rates that do come into that ward, and you try to go searching where it gets spent, and obviously because we are such a big shire, it goes a lot of other places. But yeah, we do have some massive issues when it comes to our budget to try and even get some funds. What do? We need to really address those. I think we've got a good councillor group, but we just need to know how we're going to survive moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Are there any other councillors that would like to speak? I might just say a couple of words, if I may. Just like to say that, with the budget, it is an enormous task that does take a lot of effort. Nillumbik is looking at around $62 million worth of rates being put to good use. We also have grants that come from state and federal government, and the pot is shrinking at the moment as everybody across all levels of government feels the cost of living pressures and the constraints of budgets and the increasing costs of just generally doing business, whether you're a household with your budget or whether you're a company or a level of government. So in this budget there is a rate increase that is proposed, and that is to set to the rate cap that the local government minister applies. I would like to be able to say that we don't want to put the rates up at all, but there is a reality here with this where this is needed. Otherwise, we do need to strip out a lot of what we do. The officers have put together an indication of how they would like to spend the rates. We've had some submissions from people today as to what they would like to see considered, and I am very supportive of the playground at the Diamond Creek site that was saved from being sold a couple of years ago. And yeah, I do understand residents in that area hoping that we will be able to assist them with making some functional use of that land, seeing as they've been waiting for a long time. I also do hear the men's shed wanting to improve their kitchen, the football clubs looking for barbecues, and I certainly have heard what Anne has said today about providing facilities so that the girls and the All Abilities team that play on Eltham High have got access to equal facilities. So it's a really complex thing trying to juggle the budget, but as a ratepayer myself, I'd like to make sure that we're spending money appropriately, and where money is spent, it's spent cost effectively as well. So having the chance to be able to have people provide input into the budget is really important. And one of the things that I've tried to do repeatedly over the last couple of years is ask whether we can go out to the community in a much earlier time frame, so say November, to really get communities' input into the budget, to say what are the most important things to you at that time, so we've got a longer lead time to be able to look to put together a budget in the way that some other councils in the state do, where they really incorporate ideas from the community. So I'm looking to run out of time, so I might leave it at that, but just to say thank you to those people who've given their time to provide written answers before and submissions tonight so that we can consider that. Thank you to the officers for the work that they do in managing money here at council. Councillor Perkins, I'm wondering if you'd like a right of reply, because
Yes,
I did note that Councillor Stockman is proposing to vote against the motion tonight that you're putting forward. What would you like to say? You've got a few more minutes.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it comes as a surprise, from Councillor Stockman. Doesn't say much, hasn't contributed much in the 4 years on council, but here we find him in an election year, indicating he's not going to support approval of the budget. So this is a statutory committee of council. It's not, for all purposes, not the full committee. But I think the issue that Councillor Stockman has the biggest concern with is dot point 5 in the motion recommends the adoption of the 24-25 budget at the 28th of May 2024 council meeting. So far as I'm concerned, we've had no interactions from Councillor Stockman at all. Certainly as a council, I haven't heard that Councillor Stockman had any issue with the budget. But here we are. Councillor Stockman doesn't want this committee to recommend to adopt the budget at the 28th of May council meeting. He also doesn't want the committee to receive a note submissions received in respect to the draft budget. Doesn't want council, from what he was indicating before, considers the matters contained in the submission, so consider those matters during the finalisation of the budget. He doesn't want to acknowledge the presentations to the committee, and he doesn't want the committee to resolve the confidential unredacted submissions contained in attachment 2 remain confidential on the grounds specified in the definition of confidential information in the relevant section of Local Government Act. It's a bizarre ploy. Okay, people have to do what they have to do to get re-elected, whether that be here in Nillumbik or somebody else. I wish Councillor Stockman well, but we also look forward to you working very closely with officers to help develop a budget that you will support, because a local government needs a budget. It's not good enough to just sort of say, no, I don't support the budget, I'm not going to support the budget. You now have to go and do the hard yards to actually come up with a budget that you will support, or just play the politics and go the next election saying, oh no, good, because I didn't support the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. We will move on now to take a vote on this, and I'd like to put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion, raise your hand. And that is carried with Councillor Stockman as the only opposing view tonight.
A point of order, can we you didn't ask for those against, or did you? You did, sorry.
I didn't. Do I need to do that? That's where, so those that were for, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Perkins, Councillor Payne, Councillor Egan and Councillor Ramcharan, and those against, Councillor Stockman. Thank you for picking me up on that, Councillor Perkins. I was going on the visual rather than the audio, and I realised that that's important to make sure we capture the names of councillors and how we voted properly there. So we'll move on to the next item tonight. The next item is the report for the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly in 2024, and the Nillumbik Shire motions that will be put forward at that General Assembly. We don't have any speakers, so I'll just go straight to asking whether we have somebody that would like to be the mover of this motion. Oh, I can see, Councillor Egan, that you're looking to move that. Your audio is not on at the moment, so if you unmute yourself, you'll be able to speak. Thank you.
I'm just having an issue. I tried to unmute it. The recommendation is that the committee acting under delegation from Council 1 adopts and lodges the following motions to the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly to be held in Canberra from 2nd to 4th of July 24. The first recommendation is I'll just say the ALGA, it's easier, calls on the Australian Government to provide targeted investment in the development of Australia's electrical grid network infrastructure to equitably distribute large-scale renewable energy generation. And 2, ALGA calls on the Australian Government to establish a funding stream that supports local councils in managing asset renewal responsibilities.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan, would you like to speak to the matter?
Yes, very briefly. This is every year, ALGA which is the Australian Local Government Association, has a National General Assembly in Canberra, and it gives the opportunity for councils all around Australia to make submissions towards the development of local government policy. This year it's in July, as I've just said, and the theme is building community trust this year. There's 600 odd mayors, councillors, etc. from all around Australia, and they all vote on particular recommendations, and the motions that we've put up are the two I read out. They have to be reasonably generic, and they have to apply to all councils, not just something that would apply to Nillumbik and wouldn't apply anywhere else. So it's quite difficult to come up with things that cover off all of the other councils. If they do get voted on and they become resolutions, that then helps set local government policy. It's a lovely idea, but to date, I haven't actually ever seen anything that's really come to fruition of this, but we will keep trying. I think both of those, but especially two, particularly for small councils like us, is really important, and it might go, this is the sort of thing that we're fighting for with our budget, even though we are a high rating council. Our budget has to go a long, long way. We don't have rates, lots of houses like other councils have. We're not a growth council. Our growth rate's virtually nil. It's very, very low, as you heard during the housing strategy. So we have these lovely shiny new things occasionally that we get from grants, but the grant stream's now being cut off by the state government. But we have to manage those assets. We have to maintain them, and we're not getting any funding for that. We keep getting lumped with other things from the state government that we have to do, like looking after pool regulations and, things like that aren't roads, rates and rubbish, which is what council was set up for. Our money has to be spread very, very thinly now, and that's one of my biggest frustrations, is that we keep getting lumped with other things from the state government, and we do things that aren't roads, rates and rubbish. And I think it's time we got back to the basics in what we do spend our rates on. I think there's a lot of things we spend our money on that we shouldn't be, but I won't go into that now because that's not why I'm here. In all, I think Councillor Perkins, everybody's been to Alga before, I think, from memory. And I think there's a few of us going this year. The Mayor will speak to these particular motions, so keep your fingers crossed and hopefully we'll get them over the line. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins, as the seconder, would you like to say anything? No? Any other councillors wish to speak? I will very briefly say that I did get to go to the National General Assembly last year for the first time, and it was a great experience. There's a lot of learning and a lot of crossing of ideas with other councils, and it really is an opportunity for all of the local councils across the country to get together to advocate to the federal government as well. So I'm very grateful that within the rates that we receive from residents, there's a small amount of money that's provided to councillors for professional development and the opportunity to be able to attend learning experiences like this, which in essence are really advocating for improvements for the Shire. So on that basis, that's what I'd like to say about the Australian Local Government General Assembly, that I'm support that it happens, and I'm grateful that Nillumbik has the opportunity for councillors to attend that, and we are wanting to make sure that when we do attend these things, that the residents know that we're doing so in their interests and in a way that we are not trying to be flashy with expenses, but to be frugal. All right, I'll put that to the vote if there's no one else that wishes to speak. So all in favour? And that's a unanimous decision carried. Thank you. So the last item on our meeting tonight is about the review of the governance rule for the election period. And so we had a request for hearing of submissions. There were no speakers for tonight for this report, so we will move straight into the motion. Just wondering if we've got a seconder. Sorry, I mean, somebody that would like to move the motion. Apologies, I've jumped the gun. Thanks, Councillor Perkins.
Happy to second, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins, is there anything that you'd like to say about the motion?
Well, I might move it. We'll start there. So I'll move that the committee acting under delegation of council number 1 acknowledges the notice of only one submission from the community who provided feedback on the draft governance rule, election period policy. Considers the feedback contained in that single submission, that one submission, and any presentations made to the committee during the finalisation of the governance rule, election period policy. Receives a report at the 28th of May 2024 council meeting to consider endorsing the governance rule, election period policy, and resolves the confidential unreacted copy of the one written submission to the draft general local law, attachment 3, remain confidential on the grounds specified in the definition of the confidential information in section 3(1)(f) of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins, for reading out the motion. Would you like to speak to it now?
Yeah, thank you. Look, I might read out that single submission. I can't identify who sent the submission in, but it reminds me a bit of Ghost of Christmas Past, and that was the character from A Christmas Carol, a Charles Dickens novel. This individual says, I understand candidates from within your council or council administration are restricted from campaigning from council, but may campaign as private individuals in the election period. Also, council functions will be unaffected. Seems good to me. So this motion is really about receiving, hopefully it's still there, my computer's just gone blank. This motion is really largely about accepting that submission and thanking that individual. I'd love to say who it is, but I can't. He's certainly someone well known to most of us, no longer living locally, perhaps headed down the Mornington Peninsula, that part of the world, or maybe not. Maybe it's a different David Clark, not sure, or Peter Clark. But anyway, like to move the motion, and yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this? No, okay. I would just simply say that, with the election coming up later in the year, there are rules for people to abide by with the election period, and this governance rule is simply enabling council to work in that time frame where there aren't councillors, and to make sure that, with our governance rule, that everybody adheres to the election policy that we have put forward. So in talking about an election, I just like to encourage members of the community to consider becoming a councillor, and to have discussions with officers or with councillors if this is something that you would like to put your hand up in terms of being a voice for the community, and looking at how you can help with the future and the strategy of our shire. So hearing Councillor Perkins talk about the one written submission that we received in this process, and that there were no submitters to talk tonight to this or receive additional written submissions, we'll just move straight into the vote now. I'll put the motion to the vote. We have show of hands for those who support the motion, and that's unanimous. Thank you.
Sorry, through the chair, if we could just confirm that's carried.
Oh, sorry, yes, that's unanimously carried. Thank you, Blaga, for assisting me there. The last section of the meeting usually looks at if we've got any supplementary or urgent business, and there's none of that this meeting. There are no confidential reports to look into. So at this point, we're able to close the meeting. And before closing, I'd just like to again thank all the members of the community that have provided feedback through the community engagement that we've had for the topics that were discussed today, for those that have come along and presented in person, for those who have given additional submissions that I've been able to read out. And I'd like to invite the community to keep your attention to the other items that council is bringing to the community for your feedback. as council talked about during the evening, we really do want to hear your feedback so that we can incorporate that and make the best decisions on behalf of the community. So please do make an effort to have a look at the Participate Now page on our Nillumbik website to see at any time what the items are that are open for community input. At this stage, I'll thank everybody for your attendance. Thank you to the officers for supporting this meeting and for councillors who attended. And we'll be able to close the meeting at 8:27.